They were the family Britain fell in love with, simple, humble, and built from the raw beauty of Yorkshire soil. Their story looked like a fairy tale carved out of muddy boots, shared laughter, and windswept hills. But when the cameras stopped rolling, a different truth quietly took shape. The long days on the farm grew heavier, the silence between them grew longer, and the pressure that fame brought into their once peaceful world began to twist everything they knew. Resentment crept in where affection used to live. Exhaustion replaced joy, and the bond that had held Clive and Amanda Owen together for decades slowly began to fracture. Their world looked idyllic from the outside, but behind closed doors, the heartbreak had already begun. After 22 years of marriage, Clive and Amanda's story collapsed into heartbreak, and the truth behind their split is far darker than anyone ever imagined. The Owen family from our Yorkshire farm became Britain's favorite portrait of simple living, a hard-working couple raising 9 children against the breathtaking backdrop of the Yorkshire Dales. They looked grounded, united, and unshakably strong, but behind the peaceful images of sheep grazing and children running through wild fields, cracks were quietly forming. Amanda Owen was just 21 when she first walked into Ravenseat Farm, still trying to find her place in the world as a trainee shepherdess, drawn to the rugged beauty of the land. She arrived simply to borrow a male sheep and ended up meeting the man who would change her life forever. Clive, then 42, had already lived a full life, with a previous marriage and 2 older children. Romance wasn't even on his mind, but Amanda's height, confidence, and curiosity struck him instantly. "I remember this 6-foot woman knocking on the door. I was very taken with her. You couldn't not be," he later admitted. Their bond formed in the cold winds of the Dale, tending animals, repairing fences, and sharing quiet conversations about farming long after the sun went down. A few years later, in the year 2000, they married and went on to build a family unlike any other Raven. Reuben, Miles, Edith, Violet, Sydney, Annis, Clemmy, and Nancy. The children grew up with muddy boots, early mornings, and endless chores, taught to be independent from the moment they could walk. Amanda always said their parenting style wasn't sentimental but practical. Every child had a responsibility. Every responsibility shaped their character. Some of the children were hooked. Others traveled miles across rural roads to attend local schools. Life was hard, but it was honest, and it became the heart of their story. Their big break came unexpectedly when Amanda began sharing their day-to-day life online. Stories of freezing mornings, lambing season, and the controlled chaos of raising 9 children in isolation. Her words were raw, grounded, and deeply human, capturing an authenticity that people across Britain were craving. Social media amplified her voice, turning her into an unlikely rural celebrity. Soon, television producers began circling, drawn to the charm and grit of a family living on the edge of civilization. And when cameras finally arrived at Ravenseat, the Owens became a national phenomenon even as the pressures of fame were already beginning to pull them apart. Before long, television crews arrived at Ravenseat Farm, eager to capture the charm that Amanda's writing had hinted at. Viewers fell in love instantly, but even as the cameras rolled across the sweeping hills and sunlit barns, the reality behind that peaceful setting wasn't always what it appeared to be. When Our Yorkshire Farm premiered in 2018, no one expected it to explode into a national sensation. It was a simple show, no dramatic edits, no artificial storylines, just a hard-working family on a remote 2,000-acre farm in Swaledale living their lives, and that simplicity was exactly what audiences craved. Produced by Renegade Pictures for Channel 5, the series offered something rare: authenticity. Clive became a viewer favorite for his calm steadiness, while Amanda captured hearts for her uncanny ability to juggle 9 children, hundreds of animals, and the harsh demands of hill farming with grit and grace. Their children became breakout stars in their own right. While most kids their age were still asleep, the Owen children were fixing fences, herding sheep, driving tractors, and navigating wild terrain with fearless confidence. Their independence became a symbol of a life modern Britain rarely saw anymore. By season 2, Our Yorkshire Farm was pulling in nearly 3.5 million viewers per episode, making it one of Channel 5's most watched shows of all time. But success had side effects. As Amanda's personality began to shine on screen, her influence rippled far beyond television. She embraced the nickname the Yorkshire Shepherdess, and her best-selling books The Yorkshire Shepherdess and Celebrating the Seasons gave fans an intimate look into their isolated life. Her social media presence exploded as well, drawing in hundreds of thousands of followers who adored her photos of the children, the farm, and the stunning Yorkshire landscape. Opportunities flooded in talk shows, radio interviews, live events, and soon, the Owens weren't just Britain's favorite farming family, they were a national brand. But with the fame came new unforgiving pressure. Their remote world was no longer private. Cameras watched almost everything, and every tender moment or stressful one became a part of a narrative millions would absorb. On screen, viewers saw joy, unity, and the magic of a family connected to the land. Off-screen, small cracks were forming quietly. Fame doesn't just add attention, it adds weight, and that weight began pressing hard on the very foundation of their marriage. Early signs appeared when Amanda revealed that her children sometimes ate the lambs, They had razzed a candid truth of farm life that sparked controversy and hinted at the growing divide between the family's real world and the world audiences wanted them to fit into. It was the first hint that behind the laughter, the sunsets, and the picture-perfect family moments, something darker was beginning to take shape, a slow unraveling fueled by long days, public pressure, and the impossible task of balancing real life with the demands of television. To Amanda, teaching her children to eat the lambs they'd raised wasn't shocking or cruel. It was simply part of the farming life she herself had embraced, a way to show them the natural cycle of birth, loss, and where food truly comes from. But online, her honesty lit a firestorm. Some viewers praised her for raising her kids with realism and respect for nature, while others, especially those far removed from rural life, were stunned and uncomfortable. Suddenly, Amanda's practical, grounded approach to parenting became a trending debate across the country. But she stood firm, explaining that life on a working farm leaves no space for illusions. Children grow up witnessing the truths of life and death, and she believed that understanding both was vital. That same straightforward philosophy shaped how she raised and educated her children, which sparked even more discussion. Our Yorkshire farm often showed the kids repairing machinery, tending livestock, or racing across the moors with the kind of freedom most children never experience. Many viewers admired their independence and work ethic, while others questioned whether farm life allowed enough room for formal schooling or social experiences outside their isolated valley. Amanda responded calmly, saying her children were learning skills that couldn't be taught in any classroom: self-reliance, teamwork, confidence, and responsibility. As the show expanded, the Owens took on new challenges that exposed even more of their private reality. Our Farm Next Door, a spin-off following the family as they renovated a derelict property, seemed like a natural extension of the franchise. But instead of a cheerful adventure, the renovation quickly spiraled into a nightmare. Bad weather, collapsing walls, delays, and endless setbacks pushed Amanda to frustration. She admitted on camera that things were falling apart and the stress spread through the family. Their son Reuben, once the cheerful boy fascinated with engines, now a young man running his own business, struggled under the pressure of public attention. When he landed his own series, Reuben Owen, Life in the Dales, fans were thrilled. But behind the scenes he was stretched thin, balancing heavy machinery, long filming days, and the expectations of millions. At one point, he reportedly came close to quitting altogether. But the most devastating blow came when a violent storm ripped through Ravenseat Farm, destroying livestock shelters, flooding roads, and making it nearly impossible for production crews to even reach the property. Entire schedules collapsed overnight, and the family was forced to pick up the pieces while cameras waited for them to carry on. The tension built quietly but steadily. What began as a simple documentary about a family living close to nature had evolved into a massive production with contracts, deadlines, and the crushing pressure of public expectations. By the later seasons, the shift was undeniable. The joy was still there, but so was the exhaustion beneath Amanda's smile, the silence behind Clive's steady demeanor, and the growing independence of children who were beginning to build their own futures. These cracks, once small enough to ignore it, widened into fractures, and behind them were real struggles that no clever editing, no drone shot, and no cheerful narration could hide. And these challenges would eventually test the Owens in ways that no storm, no failing barn, and no camera crew ever could. The real fractures didn't come from bad weather or broken fences. They came from the relentless pressure that fame placed on the family from the inside out. In one unforgettable episode of Our Farm Next Door, Amanda broke down in tears, admitting that she was drained to her core, worn thin from carrying the impossible weight of parenting, farm work, and constant public attention. The cameras had turned her into Britain's most beloved rural figure, a symbol of strength and resilience. But with that recognition came expectations she could never fully outrun. Viewers wanted the smiling, unstoppable shepherdess who could juggle 9 children, bitter Yorkshire winters, broken machinery, and fame all without ever cracking. But away from the bright skies and sweeping drone shots, she wasn't always that unshakable woman. The filming schedules bled into personal time, the social media pressure grew unbearable, and tabloids dissected every corner of her life. Amanda admitted that the persona the public adored, the capable, calm, unwavering shepherdess, had begun to feel like a costume she couldn't take off. She still loved her land and her children fiercely, but the world no longer saw her as Amanda the woman. They saw her as Amanda the brand. Every choice she made, whether it was how she raised her children, what she posted online, or where she appeared, was met with judgment. Fans worshipped her, but critics lurked behind every headline. And slowly, interview after interview, Amanda began revealing how isolating that spotlight truly was. She felt overwhelmed by the pressure to hold everything together when, in reality, she often felt she was coming undone. The pandemic only intensified the strain. Like everyone else, the Owens were cut off from the world. But Amanda's isolation came with cameras waiting, audiences expecting, producers pushing for more of the cheerful resilience they had built the show around. Behind the scenes, the emotional burden was enormous. The scrutiny around her personal life intensified. The tabloids shifted focus from the farm to her marriage, and fans who once admired her authenticity suddenly found themselves dissecting rumors, instead of celebrating the family they once adored. Through it all, Amanda tried to keep the spotlight on her children, her animals, and her work, but the exhaustion showed in every quiet moment the cameras managed to capture. Meanwhile, Clive faced his own battles, quieter, but just as devastating. In 2024, he underwent major hip surgery, a grueling recovery that Amanda later described as nothing short of a nightmare. For a man who had spent decades rising before dawn, walking the hills, shearing sheep, repairing stone walls, and living in constant motion, being forced to slow down felt like losing a part of himself. Farming doesn't wait for anyone, and being sidelined made him frustrated, restless, and painfully aware of time creeping up on him. His surgery wasn't just a medical procedure, it was a turning point, a moment that forced him to look back at everything he and Amanda had built together and question how much of themselves they had sacrificed for the farm, the show, and the family. And while the cameras caught only fragments, the truth was undeniable. The Owens were reaching a breaking point that no audience, no producer, and no television storyline had ever prepared them for. In one rare and painfully honest interview, Clive admitted he had battled with feelings of regret and loneliness, feelings he had buried for years beneath the weight of responsibility, the demands of the farm, and the image of strength he maintained for his family. The farm that once felt alive with laughter, children's footsteps, and shared dreams had slowly begun to feel emptier. Their kids were growing up, drifting toward their own futures, and Amanda was being pulled further and further into the world of books, interviews, radio shows, and TV crews. Those quiet moments the two of them once shared, the late-night tea after lambing season, the calm conversations in the barn when the rest of the world was asleep, became fewer and fewer until, for Clive, it felt like they had vanished altogether. He spoke candidly about how fame had changed the rhythm of their lives, stretching them in opposite directions until the distance between them was impossible to ignore. By then, the family's private struggles were no longer theirs alone. They were being watched, analyzed, and interpreted by millions of viewers who could sense the tension even when it wasn't spelled out on camera. Amanda's emotional openness, Clive's quiet vulnerability, their children's growing independence, each unspoken moment revealed that behind the sweeping Yorkshire landscapes and cheerful family scenes was a very human story unfolding, one filled with exhaustion, heartbreak, and a determination to keep going even when things felt unbearably heavy. Yet among the many challenges surrounding the Owens, one story rarely made it onto television: the painful and complicated tension between Clive and his eldest daughter from his first marriage, Rosie. She had been only 13 when her father remarried, and though she was asked to be a bridesmaid at Clive and Amanda's wedding, a gesture that seemed warm and symbolic, Rosie later admitted she cried before the ceremony, overwhelmed by a sudden shift in her family that she didn't know how to navigate. It wasn't anger at Amanda, but a fear of losing her place, of watching her father build a new life she didn't feel part of. And as the years passed, that feeling only deepened. While Amanda and Clive built a large, bustling family at Ravenseat Farm, Rosie's connection to her father quietly faded. She described their relationship as beyond repair, revealing that she often felt like an outsider in his new world. The same farm that became beloved by millions of viewers was, for her, a reminder of everything she had been left out of. She rarely visited, choosing instead to create a separate life for herself in Cumbria, working as a barmaid far from the cameras and the celebrity that surrounded her father's new family. She never publicly attacked Clive or Amanda, but her silence, her absence spoke louder than any criticism ever could. To Rosie, her father had slowly become more of a TV figure than a parent, someone she could watch on screen but barely reach in real life. Her story painted a stark contrast to the wholesome family portrait shown on our Yorkshire farm, revealing a deeper truth while viewers saw unity and laughter. Emotional gaps had been forming for years, long before fame entered the picture, and as that distance grew between Clive and Rosie, and eventually between Clive and Amanda, the once unshakable foundation of the Owen family began to crack in ways no one expected, and certainly in ways no camera ever captured. Those cracks would eventually deepen into one of the most heartbreaking chapters in their entire story: the quiet, painful collapse of a marriage that millions believed would last forever. In 2022, Amanda and Clive Owen finally confirmed what viewers had sensed but never wanted to admit: their 22-year marriage had come to an end. The news stunned fans who had spent years watching them shoulder burdens together on our Yorkshire farm, believing that if any couple could survive hardship, weather, and chaos, it was them. But while the world saw a partnership forged in grit and love, the reality behind the cameras was far more fragile. Amanda later revealed that the relentless pace of filming and the suffocating pressure of fame had slowly eroded the foundation of their relationship. What had started as a shared dream, raising their children, building a life on the land, and embracing the simplicity of farm life, had gradually turned into something heavier, something neither of them had been prepared for. The cameras that once captured their laughter began to magnify their differences. The public attention that once felt flattering began to feel invasive, and their marriage, once strengthened by mutual effort, became strained beneath the weight of demands they never saw coming. As the show grew, Amanda's career exploded. Her books became bestsellers, her interviews multiplied, and her social media presence skyrocketed. She became the face of the family, the Yorkshire Shepherdess. But while she was rising, Clive struggled. He admitted that uncomfortable feelings of jealousy, resentment, and fear crept in. Not anger toward Amanda, but toward the sense that she was moving ahead while he was standing still. He confessed that he didn't always cope well with her growing fame, that he sometimes let frustration spill into their home, and that he regretted how those moments had impacted their marriage. Meanwhile, Amanda felt the emotional distance widening. She often described how the connection that once held them together had been replaced by exhaustion and routine. They were still partners in work, still devoted parents, still holding the family together, but emotionally they were drifting on separate paths. Running a farm of their scale, raising 9 children, hosting a TV crew, balancing endless interviews, and living under constant public scrutiny left no room for quiet intimacy. Their once shared moments, simple conversations on the porch, shared tasks in the barn, laughing together at the end of a long day became painfully rare. And by the time they announced their separation, the love that once united them had been replaced by something neither of them expected: silence. Amanda appeared visibly emotional in later filming, her eyes carrying the weight of unspoken grief. Clive, in a moment of rare vulnerability, accepted responsibility for his part in the downfall of the marriage. He admitted that he hadn't handled the pressure well, that he regretted the moments where he didn't rise to the challenge, and that losing Amanda was something he would carry for the rest of his life. Yet even amid heartbreak, they remained united in one thing: their children. They vowed to co-parent with grace, to put family before pride, and to separate their private pain from their shared responsibilities. And though their marriage ended, their story, one of love, struggle, fame, and quiet heartbreak, remains one of the most human and unforgettable narratives ever to emerge from the Yorkshire Hills. She explained, "I never set out looking for another relationship. Life just has a way of unfolding, whether you're ready or not." Her honesty resonated, but it also revealed how profoundly her world had shifted since the divorce. While Amanda stepped into this new beginning with cautious optimism, Clive chose a quieter path. After decades spent in the public eye, he slowly withdrew from the spotlight, focusing on the land, the animals, and the rhythms of farm life, the things that made him feel grounded long before fame arrived. Friends close to the Owens say Clive carries himself with a mixture of pride and melancholy these days, proud of what he and Amanda built together, but still healing from the emotional toll of watching their marriage dissolve under a spotlight. He stays deeply connected to his children and remains a steady, loving presence in their lives. In interviews, Clive made it clear that he holds no bitterness toward Amanda's new relationship, insisting that her happiness will always matter more than any old wounds. Yet behind that grace lies the quiet truth of a man forced to rebuild his identity after the cameras stopped rolling and the applause faded. Meanwhile, the children, now older, more independent, and carving out identities separate from the TV versions of themselves, remain the glue between both parents. They continue to appear in projects, help with the farm, and maintain a strong sense of unity despite the family's restructuring. For them, the divorce wasn't a fracture so much as a transition into a new kind of normal. Life at Raven Seat slowly evolved: new routines, new boundaries, and new stories shaped by change rather than crisis. Even though Amanda and Clive now lead separate romantic lives, their shared history continues to anchor them to the land they built together. And as they navigate this next chapter to separate lives still woven into the same farm, the same family, and same legacy, they show that even after heartbreak, even after a marriage ends, the story doesn't have to fall apart. It can transform into something quieter, steadier, and unexpectedly graceful. A new beginning shaped not by loss, but by resilience. Rob Davies had been a familiar face in their world for years. Someone both Amanda and Clive trusted long before the marriage ended. When Amanda spoke about him, she clarified the truth that many tabloids twisted. Rob was a friend that Clive and I had both known for a long time. What he offered was conversation rather than confrontation, and Clive knew about it from the very beginning. He was actually the one who suggested Rob and I would be a good match. Her words revealed not scandal but a quiet understanding between two people whose lives had evolved in different directions. Meanwhile, Amanda's career showed no sign of slowing down. With an estimated net worth of around £1 million, she continued thriving through best-selling books, television projects, event appearances, and her beloved persona as the Yorkshire Shepherdess. Even as her personal life shifted, her voice remained grounded, funny, honest, and filled with the same grit and charm that had drawn millions of viewers to her family in the first place. Her social media presence remained strong, offering glimpses of farm life, family moments, and the rugged beauty of Yorkshire, reminding fans that despite everything, her roots had never changed. Clive, on the other hand, stepped into a quieter chapter. He retreated from fame with a gentleness that felt true to who he had always been. Though he still appeared in Our Farm Next Door, his role became more subtle, more reflective, more about the work than the spotlight. Viewers noticed the pride in his eyes when he watched his children grow into skilled young adults. They noticed the way he offered advice, lifted heavy loads without being asked, and stood in the background making sure everything held together. His life after the divorce was steady, grounded, and free from public performance. Like Amanda, Clive eventually began seeing other people, though he chose to keep those details private. Amanda later confirmed this, saying, "A few years ago, Clive was also seeing someone else and was openly dating. It wasn't a secret. Everyone around us knew, even the children." Clive himself addressed the double standard he faced, saying, "I was seeing other people, too, and no one came after me with cameras and negative stories calling me a homewrecker." It was a quieter truth, far from the sensational headlines, revealing to people who had simply grown apart, yet continued to treat each other with respect. Financially, Clive lived modestly, pouring most of his time, energy, and income back into the farm. And while Amanda's public visibility grew, Clive remained the steady center of the land they once built together, offering the family stability without needing the spotlight. Together, even in separation, they remained united in the things that mattered most: their 9 children, the traditions of Raven Seat, and the legacy of a life lived close to the land. Their marriage had ended, but the story of their family continued, woven into every stone wall, every lambing season, and every sunrise over the Yorkshire hills. So now the question remains: do you think the fame of our Yorkshire farm played a role in the collapse of Amanda and Clive's marriage? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into the real story behind the headlines, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and click the next video on your screen for more untold truths from the lives of the people you think you know.